When a random checkpoint turns into a career-changing moment, a police officer faces a truth he was never prepared for. But this time, the man stopped is more than just a driver, he holds the fate of his entire team in his hands. It was late at night, neon lights flashing on the wet pavement of Atlantic Bay City. Thomas Reynolds drove home after a stressful day at his investment firm. The sea breeze carried a chill, and the radio played softly in the car. The traffic light ahead blinked yellow, and Thomas slowly stepped on the brakes. But as soon as he stopped, red and green lights flashed behind him, accompanied by a siren. He glanced quickly at the rearview mirror and calmly pulled over. As the window rolled down, a police officer stepped forward, Daniel Foster, a tough-looking man with sharp eyes and experience. "Driver's license and car registration," Foster said in a tone that left no room for negotiation. Thomas didn't hesitate, pulling papers from the glove compartment and handing them over. Foster examined them, his eyes skimming over each detail carefully. "Do you know why I stopped your car?" Thomas kept his voice even. "I think I stopped at the right time, but if there are any problems, I'm willing to cooperate." Foster nodded, but his eyes never left Thomas. "You're from somewhere else, aren't you?" Thomas raised an eyebrow. "I just moved to Atlantic Bay. Address is on the license." Foster didn't respond immediately. Instead, his eyes sharpened. "Where are you rushing to at this hour?" "Just going home," Thomas replied simply. The air between them was tense. Foster didn't move, as if considering something. Then, he said slowly, "Get out of the car." Thomas held his position for a moment. "Any particular reason, officer?" Foster leaned closer. "Just a standard check." Thomas sighed, opened the door, and stepped out. Foster's eyes took him in, the expensive suit, the high-end watch, everything about Thomas screamed that he didn't belong in these random stops. "Turn around, put your hands on the hood." Thomas shrugged but complied. Foster's hands roamed over him, each movement deliberately slow. This wasn't just an inspection, it was a display of power. But Thomas didn't flinch. "I'm sure you have your reasons for doing this," Thomas said, his voice calm. Foster smirked. "You act so calm. Not everyone acts like this." Thomas chuckled. "I have reason not to worry." "Is that so?" Foster stepped back, folding his arms and looking at Thomas. "What did you do?" Thomas slowly pulled a leather wallet from his pocket and opened it. On it, a shiny badge reflected the streetlights. "Thomas Reynolds," he said slowly. "Special Inspector of the Police Conduct Review Board." Foster's face stiffened. His eyes flicked to the badge and then back to Thomas with a mixture of disbelief and concern. "Are you kidding me?" Thomas put his wallet away. "I don't make a habit of joking around in situations like this." The air around them seemed to freeze. Foster blinked a few times, then took a silent step back. "I was just following procedure," he said, his voice lower than before. Thomas crossed his arms over his chest. "The problem is that your process seems to target certain people." Foster was silent. "You know what's scariest about this situation, officer?" Thomas continued. "You did it all without realizing who you were dealing with." Foster swallowed. Thomas gave a small smile that lacked any warmth. "I will make sure you remember this moment." He walked back to the car, closed the door, and drove away, leaving Foster standing there with a heavy feeling in his heart. But he knew, this story was not over. The next day, Foster received a call from his superior. A stern voice came over the phone. "Foster, you need to come to the office immediately." He took a deep breath, feeling a storm coming. At the police station, Foster walked into the room. A heavy and serious atmosphere was weighing on him, all the eyes of the police officers were on him. "We have a serious problem here," said Colonel Mitchell. Foster knew this was more than just a simple conversation. This was the beginning of an investigation he couldn't avoid. "We have a serious problem here," Foster's superior said, his voice deep and authoritative. "Inspector Reynolds has filed a report on your conduct, Officer Foster. He alleges that you abused your authority and engaged in discriminatory conduct during a traffic stop. Do you know that Thomas Reynolds is here to supervise the entire city police? Foster's superior said, his voice deep and authoritative. He is a man known for his integrity and strictness. There is absolutely no tolerance for any wrongdoing, even the smallest act related to morality, even if it is just judging others by their appearance. Foster felt a chill run down his spine. He knew that stopping Thomas Reynolds was not just a mistake, but a serious one. "Sir, I was just following procedure. I had no idea." "You don't know who you're dealing with," Colonel Mitchell cut in, his voice cold. "That's the problem, Officer Foster. You're judging a man based on his appearance, instead of following the law and regulations." Colonel Mitchell walked around Foster, hands clasped behind his back, eyes full of disappointment. "Foster, you have violated many rules. You stopped a car without cause, searched a person without cause, and most importantly, you have damaged the reputation of the police force." Foster was silent, not knowing what to say. He understood that his career was at stake. I'm sorry. I made a mistake." "An apology is not enough," he said. "Your actions have had serious consequences. This is not just a personal problem, but a systemic problem. Inspector Reynolds has expressed concerns about the ethics of our police force," the superior continued. "He will conduct an internal investigation, reviewing the professionalism and character of each officer. This is our opportunity to prove our innocence. As for Foster, you are suspended for 3 months. During this time, you must reflect on what you have done." Foster bowed his head, feeling ashamed and disappointed. He knew he had done wrong, but he had not expected the consequences to be so serious. The next day, Thomas called a meeting of the entire city police system. Everyone was worried and felt the tension in the meeting. "Through a long investigation, I have discovered a serious problem in this system. Unforgivable corruption pervades our police force. Abuse of power to accept bribes, abetting acts that violate the law, contrary to the professional ethics that we are sworn to protect." Thomas looked intently at Mitchell as he spoke, trying to make his message clear. "And yet you have the conscience to turn a blind eye to what's going on? Every day, innocent people live in fear not only from outside criminals but also from the very people tasked with protecting them. How can we stand by while corruption runs rampant within our department, threatening the image of our police force and the public's faith in justice?" Reynolds paused, letting his frustration settle. "We promise to uphold justice, but in the face of this painful truth, are we still worthy of the badge? If we don't act now, our future, and that of this entire unit, is at stake. It's time we face the truth, no matter how painful it is. Right, Mitchell?" Mitchell tried to keep his face impassive, but he couldn't hide the worry rising inside him. "It can't be," he said, his voice rising, as if trying to convince himself. "This is happening on our team? I've been cracking down on corruption and bribery for years. I can't believe someone would dare break the rules right under our noses." Looking into Reynolds' eyes, Mitchell felt the anger simmering. "If I find anyone dishonest on the team, I swear I will deal with them severely. I cannot allow corrupt people to tarnish our reputation. This team is built on loyalty and responsibility, and every time we ignore the truth, we break those values." Mitchell paused, his face growing more determined. "I need you to understand that if there is any evidence of this, we cannot just talk about it. We must stand up and act, not just for ourselves, but for our respected colleagues and the people we are sworn to protect." With eyes shining with determination, Mitchell looked around, seeking agreement from the others. If such a network of corruption really exists, we cannot stand idly by. Each of us has a responsibility, and it is time to act to restore public confidence in this police force. As the conversation continued, Reynolds sensed the tension in the room. He had been given information that could destabilize the entire unit, and he knew he needed to act carefully but decisively. A week later, Reynolds' investigation had turned up some important clues. Small clues from other officers' reports, along with the secret calls he'd been monitoring, were slowly piecing together a clearer picture. Thomas had contacted an anonymous source within the squad, and, surprisingly, The person behind it all was Mitchell. Thomas was devastated when he learned the truth, feeling his heart clench with disappointment. How could this be? Reynolds wondered helplessly, his head spinning with questions, memories and moments echoing in his mind. They had been through so much together, discussed difficult decisions, shared happy moments in review meetings. What am I missing? The image of Mitchell, once devoted to justice, now a traitor, broke Reynolds's heart. The huge sums of money Mitchell had manipulated were all part of the cases they had solved, the solutions they had worked on together. Reynolds imagined the people he had fought, the citizens they had protected, all falling victim to this corruption. The feeling of powerlessness rose up, like waves crashing against a wall, and he could do nothing but feel defeated. Reynolds braced himself for the confrontation, his heart pounding in his chest. He entered the office with determination, calling Mitchell into a private room to talk. "Mitchell," he began, his voice confident but tinged with concern. "We need to talk. I've uncovered something serious in my investigation." Mitchell raised his eyebrows, trying to keep his composure. "About what?" "I have nothing to hide. Don't try to play spy," Reynolds replied, not looking away. "You're the head of this corruption network. I've seen the signs, the calls, the money transfers. You've manipulated other officers into accepting bribes." Mitchell's face changed rapidly from surprise to unconcealed anger. "You're talking nonsense. I've devoted my life to this team. Saying that is a disgrace to my honor." Reynolds did not back down. "What honor is there to defend when you are abusing your power? You say you want to protect justice, but in reality you are leading traitors in your own ranks. You have struck fear into the hearts of the people we are sworn to protect. You have failed me so much, have you forgotten me and the one who swore to be pure to the end?" Mitchell started to worry, his eyes glinting with malice, but then a hint of weakness appeared. "If anyone hears about this, the whole team will fall apart. You can't do this, Reynolds. We've been colleagues for years. Don't destroy everything we've built." Reynolds' gaze hardened. "If you don't stop now, I will have no choice but to report everything to my superiors. You may face consequences you can't even imagine." But Mitchell immediately turned to the other side, his attitude rebellious towards Thomas. "Don't be stupid, Reynolds. Do you think you can fight alone? I have allies who will stand by me. If you report, you will not only lose your job but also lose everything." Hearing these words, Thomas's heart felt as if it was stabbed by 1,000 knives. The brother he had trusted for so long had been blinded by money, lost his mind, and now turned his back on him. Reynolds felt adrenaline pumping through his body, but he knew he couldn't be shy. "I won't let people like you continue to harm the team and the community. The decision is yours. You can turn around and end this right now, or I'll bring the whole truth to light." The atmosphere in the office was more tense than ever, and the silence felt like it could be cut with a knife. At this moment, Reynolds realized that this was not just a personal battle, but a battle for conscience and justice. The future of the entire police force was hanging by a thin thread. Mitchell, now completely out of his element, was left with a look of pure rage in his eyes. "I won't let this happen. I will defend my position to the end," he shouted, and suddenly lunged forward, intending to shove Reynolds away, and angrily walked out with a slam of the door. Reynolds watched Mitchell leave the office, his heart heavy with worry. He realized that there was no sign that Mitchell would turn around or repent. Hysteria had replaced the reason of his once respected colleague. Reynolds, with his inherent integrity and responsibility, knew that he could not remain indifferent to the situation. The decision was made. In the quiet of the night, Reynolds sat at his desk, his hands shaking as he wrote a report on the misdeeds of Mitchell and his associates. He knew that this action would mean severing friendships and trusts, but he could not put personal gain above justice. After completing the report, Reynolds pressed the send button, feeling as if a weight had been lifted. 3 days later, the dispatch from above came as a pending verdict. Mitchell and his accomplices were arrested in a surprise raid. The news spread like wildfire across social media, with each photo and story of corruption within the police unit becoming the focus of public attention. Images of Mitchell, handcuffed and angry, circulated at breakneck speed. As the police escorted him out of the office, Mitchell's eyes met Reynolds'. There was a moment of silence, but the look was cold and vengeful. "What have you done, Thomas?" Mitchell growled, more than ever betrayed in his own game. Reynolds felt the tension in the air, but he remained steadfast. "This isn't just about me," Reynolds replied firmly. "It's about the team, about the justice we're sworn to protect. I can't stand by and watch you destroy it all." Mitchell shouted, "You will have to live with this decision. Everything we have built together will be gone. It is your corruption that is destroying everything, not me," Reynolds replied. As the police car drove away, Reynolds felt a mixture of emotions. Not only was he dealing with the loss of a friend, but he was also coming to terms with the fact that sometimes, the right decisions come with painful costs. Reynolds later realized that this was more than a personal struggle. It was a profound lesson in conscience and responsibility. Those in leadership roles must have the strength to stand up to the temptations of power. He understood that honoring the truth, however painful, was the only way to rebuild trust in the community. This battle not only brings an end to a tragic chapter, but also the beginning of a new journey, a journey with a higher goal: building a clean police force and protecting justice for all. Reynolds tells himself, in the most difficult moments, it is still possible to make the right choice, and that is a value he will never give up. If you find the above story valuable, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts after listening to the story in the comments section. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.